The thing that I really love about these chairs is you could put this look next to a very modern table, and it works.
Do you ever think about those lockers in Storage Wars and wonder if maybe they were picked out before the cameras even showed up? Or if the so-called Holy Grail finds were sneakily planted the night before? The show blew up and made a ton of cash, but behind all the crazy bidding wars and jackpot discoveries, it was kind of like reality TV playing dress up. Now, the cast and crew who were actually there are spilling the beans. And honestly, their stories make the show look like a kid's cartoon. The Golden Goose. So, back on December 1st, 2010, A&E dropped this little show about abandoned storage lockers called Storage Wars, and it totally blew up. At its peak, over 5 million people were tuning in for each episode, and it ended up turning into this massive cultural thing with merchandise, a video game, and even a live auction tour. People just couldn't get enough of the idea that you could walk in, spend $40, and maybe walk out with a $10,000 comic book or some classic car that had been sitting forgotten for years. The guy behind it, Tom Beers, the creator and executive producer, kept insisting everything on the show was real and not staged. And honestly, you wanted to believe him. Like, maybe regular people could still get lucky behind a roll-up door. But, well, it turns out it wasn't quite that simple. A lot of the treasures were fake. The rivalries between buyers were sometimes planned out. And anyone who tried to call out the nonsense usually got kicked off the show. It took a bunch of lawsuits, leaked contracts, and some very nervous network lawyers for people to finally start seeing what was really going on behind the scenes. The myth of the lucky find. The biggest trick Storage Wars pulled was making everyone believe in the lucky find. In reality, a lot of those amazing discoveries were staged through something called salting, which basically means planting stuff in lockers ahead of time. Brandon Sheets, Daryl the Gambler. Sheets' son even admitted on a 2021 podcast that it was super obvious sometimes. He said, "Sometimes they'd tell us, 'Don't dig too deep in the front corner.' Next day, boom, there's a vintage vending machine." The way it worked was simple. Production would find a locker that looked promising, cut the lock, sneak in something headline-worthy, swap the lock back, and hand the key to auctioneer Dan Dotson. But it wasn't just about making money. It was about creating moments. If the show needed Barry Weiss to have a quirky, memorable moment, suddenly a 1950s carnival strength tester would show up. If Dave Hester was supposed to look like the villain, a rare neon sign would magically appear in the locker he was going to buy. Tom Beers eventually admitted that sometimes items from multiple lockers were combined just to make a dramatic reveal. And the wildest proof, Dave Hester's lawsuit, which claimed that production routinely planted expensive items, including a classic BMW minicar he found under a pile of junk. Dialogue on a script stand. Even though the cast felt like they were just being themselves, a lot of their lines were actually planned. Tom Beers admitted that about half of it was outlined beforehand, with writers helping to shape the story. Cast members would get bullet points or story beats for their confessional interviews, telling them to dial up the rivalry with Dave, tease Jarrod about a bad buy, or slip in a catchphrase like, "It was a bad day for the competition." Even the stuff that seemed spontaneous was sometimes faked in editing. Editors used this technique called frankenbiting, where they'd cut together different words and syllables from hours of footage to make people say things they never actually said. That little echo or weird tone you notice when a locker door opens? Yeah, that's probably post-production magic. The contracts even gave producers the right to create composite audio for narrative clarity, which is basically a legal way of putting words in the cast's mouths to tell the story they wanted. So while Dave Hester definitely yelled, "Yup," at some point, it might not have happened exactly when, or for the reason, You think. Fake bids, real invoices. It wasn't just the lockers that were rigged. Sometimes the auctions themselves got a little help. Leaked budgets and info from Dave Hester's lawsuit showed that the network would occasionally wire money to buyers who didn't have much cash, just so they could keep bidding and make the competition look exciting. Apparently, Jarrod Schultz's bidding limit would get topped off whenever the producers wanted a ratings boost. It wasn't a gift. It was a calculated move to make sure the episodes had drama. Nobody wants to watch one buyer steamroll every auction, so the underdogs were basically given little loans that the show later recouped from their appearance fees. Some auctions even got totally restaged. If the cameras missed a dramatic moment or a key reaction, auctioneer Dan Dotson would sometimes have to reopen the bidding just to get it on tape. In real auctions, these TV sales don't actually count for anything. But for the show, it meant every episode had a neat little story arc with different buyers getting their shining moments. Basically, it looked like a fair fight on screen, but behind the scenes, the deck was definitely stacked. The lawsuit that tore the roof off. Everything started unraveling in December 2012 when Dave Hester, the show's notorious villain, filed a massive 22-page lawsuit against A&E and Original Productions. He claimed he'd been fired for complaining about the show's shady practices and dropped some seriously explosive allegations. That lockers were regularly salted with valuable items, that producers sometimes paid for storage units for struggling cast members, and that some auctions were completely staged. The lawsuit even mentioned something called Operation Locker Drop, and claimed producers went so far as to pay for a female cast member's plastic surgery to boost her on-screen appeal. A&E pushed back by trying to make Hester pay their legal fees, and a judge actually granted that, but the battle kept going. The case eventually settled out of court in 2014 under sealed terms, but by then the damage was done. Many outlets called it the moment reality TV's credibility finally took a hit. Hester came back for season 5. Rumor has it with a huge 7-figure paycheck. But viewers were now watching with a much more skeptical eye. The disclaimers nobody reads. After Dave Hester's big lawsuit settled, A&E had to quietly admit that not everything on Storage Wars was 100% real. They added a tiny little disclaimer at the end of each episode that basically said, portions of this program have been edited for entertainment purposes. That's it. 8 words in an 8-point font, shown for maybe 3 seconds. Blink and you'd totally miss it. Legally, it gave A&E a shield against future fraud claims, a get-out-of-jail-free card saying, hey, yeah, this is technically staged entertainment. But for anyone who actually noticed it, it felt more like finding a secret cheat code, confirming that all those epic treasure hunts weren't exactly what they seemed. Health scares and tragedies beyond the screen. While all the on-screen drama was mostly manufactured, some of the real-life dangers the cast faced were anything but fake. In March 2019, Daryl Sheets had what he called a mild heart attack, which led to a congestive heart failure diagnosis and a serious lung problem that needed surgery. He'd been feeling sick for months, but the show never mentioned it, just framing his absence as taking a break. Then in April 2019, Barry Weiss was in a terrible motorcycle accident when a car pulled out of a parking spot and he crashed into it, breaking bones and suffering internal injuries. He spent weeks in the ICU and had multiple surgeries, all completely absent from the show. On top of that, recurring buyer Mark Bolello, aka Rico Suave, tragically died by suicide in February 2013, just 2 days after a run-in with the law. It's a pretty grim contrast. The things the audience never saw were life or death serious, while all the on-screen drama was carefully cooked up by the producers. The Pay Cut Massacre. By 2017, Storage Wars wasn't the unstoppable hit it once was, and A&E started tightening the budget, which led to what people jokingly called the pay cut massacre. The main cast reportedly had their per-episode fees slashed by as much as 30%. Some long-standing cast members even got fired as part of this cost-cutting push. Daryl Sheets tried to keep his son Brandon on the show, but budget constraints meant Brandon was cut anyway. Daryl stuck around, but he definitely grumbled about how the network handled things. To try and shake things up and save money, the network brought in some new, cheaper buyers to fill the gaps. The problem? Audiences didn't connect with them the same way, and ratings kept flatlining. Once a cable titan, the show was now stumbling along in what you could call budget purgatory, with tensions rising among the cast. In fact, auctioneer Dan Dotson was reportedly caught on an audio recording suggesting that the cast should band together and threaten to sue the network over their pay cuts. Jarrod's time in an orange jumpsuit. The show worked hard to make Jarrod Schultz look like a lovable, impulsive young gun, chasing the American dream with his partner, Brandi Passante. But that image skipped over a pretty serious part of his past. Public records show that back in 1997, Jarrod got into legal trouble. He was arrested for DUI, transporting narcotics, and felony possession of a controlled substance, which eventually led to a 16-month stint in a California state prison. On the show, his story was all about bouncing back after a failed mortgage business and finding a second chance in storage auctions. When his mugshot and criminal history surfaced online, it complicated that carefully curated story. The producers and A&E mostly stayed quiet, issuing a no comment and hoping it would blow over. Advertisers didn't seem to care, and the show kept presenting Jarrod as the plucky underdog, which just goes to show that sometimes a polished reality is way more profitable than the messy truth. Brandi and Jarrod's breakup was hidden for ratings. For years, the on-screen dynamic of Brandi Passante and Jarrod Schultz, always bickering but somehow sticking together, was a big part of what made Storage Wars so watchable. They even got their own spin-off, Brandi and Jarrod, Married to the Job. But behind the scenes, things were not so picture-perfect. The couple actually split in 2018, yet they kept it secret for over 2 years, because the producers wanted to maintain the illusion for ratings. They continued filming together, and editors cleverly spliced in old footage of them being affectionate so viewers wouldn't notice. Some fans did start to catch on, though. Things didn't quite line up with what was being shown on screen. The truth finally came out in the season 13 premiere in 2021, when Brandi just flat out said, "I'm not with Jarrod anymore." Things got even uglier after that. In May 2021, Jarrod was charged with misdemeanor domestic violence battery following a confrontation with Brandi at a bar, where he allegedly shoved her. After that incident, his time on the show came to a sudden end. Then there's the locker story everyone loves to talk about, the one that supposedly held $7.5 million in cash. In 2018, auctioneer Dan Dotson shared a story on social media about a unit he sold for just $500. According to him, the buyer found a safe inside, and when they cracked it open, it was stuffed with cash. The original owners apparently realized their mistake, and, through a lawyer, offered a $1.2 million reward to get the rest of the money back. The buyer allegedly agreed. It's the kind of story that feels like the ultimate Storage Wars fantasy, but many co-stars, including Dave Hester, have expressed serious doubts, calling it the greatest promotional stunt in reality TV history. There's no police report, no official confirmation from the storage facility, and no names ever released. Basically, it exists entirely on Dan's word, passed along from someone he met at a charity event. True or not, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It went viral, reinforced the idea that massive fortunes could be hiding behind any roll-up door, and added yet another layer of legend to the Storage Wars universe. Headlines galore and not a single verifiable fact. What this means for all reality TV. Honestly, Storage Wars wasn't some weird one-off experiment. It just got caught. The tricks it used to create drama are actually pretty standard across reality TV. Stuff like salting fines, frankenbiting audio, or giving cast members financial help to keep the story moving shows up in everything from house-flipping competitions to car build shows and even cooking contests. Reality has become more of a genre label than an actual promise that what you're seeing is real. Sure, the drama feels real, the emotional highs, the rivalries, the big discoveries, but a lot of the spontaneity that's supposed to trigger that drama is actually carefully manufactured. The show is a pretty clear reminder that in unscripted TV, the story always comes first, and reality is just another tool to tell it. The whole Storage Wars controversy also got people talking about the future of reality TV. Some insiders and critics are pushing for a documentary plus style, shooting more observationally, adding context and graphics later, but with zero planting or stage drama. Others say we need bigger, more obvious disclaimers at the start of shows, not tiny messages at the end. The problem is, pure reality doesn't usually test well. Networks tried live feeds from auctions, but audiences quickly got bored, because real storage hunting is mostly dusty mattresses, broken furniture, and rat droppings. Until viewers start showing they actually enjoy slower, messier, authentic storytelling, networks are probably going to keep staging stuff. It's cheaper, faster, and reliably keeps people clicking. Fan reactions, from devotion to disillusion. When all the behind-the-scenes secrets came out, it hit the show's devoted fans pretty hard. Reddit threads and fan forums turned into battlegrounds, with some people still appreciating the show for its entertainment value, while others felt totally betrayed and outraged. The market for cast memorabilia took a nosedive too. Signed photos that used to go for $100 barely sold for $20. Still, there's a die-hard group of fans who defend the show, arguing fake items, real skills. For them, it wasn't really about whether the treasures were planted or not. It was about watching the bidders work their magic, feeling the thrill of the hunt, and holding on to the hope that the next locker could change someone's life. On top of that, the legal setup for reality TV keeps a lot of these shady practices in play. Cast members often have to sign story consultation clauses, which basically give producers the legal green light to reshape their life stories in the editing room. And by labeling participants as independent contractors instead of employees, networks get around things like healthcare, overtime, and residuals from reruns. It's a system that heavily favors the studios, leaving the talent with very little power. Until laws catch up to how reality TV actually works, the industry will keep running in this gray area, drawing in new cast members who think they're signing up for a real adventure when the producers are calling most of the shots behind the scenes. The psychology of why we keep watching. Even after you know the whole thing is rigged, it's surprisingly hard to stop watching Storage Wars. That's because the show is basically a masterclass in what psychologists call manufactured serendipity. It mixes the thrill of a random reward, the big surprise find, with personal stakes like the cast's rivalries and financial risks, then sprinkles in a little competitive smack talk. All of that combines into a dopamine loop that keeps you hooked. And here's the kicker. Knowing the tricks behind the scenes doesn't necessarily ruin it. For some fans, being in on the secret actually makes it more fun. They get to feel clever for spotting the manipulation while still enjoying all the drama and excitement. The on-screen chaos didn't just affect the cast, it spilled over into the storage industry itself. After the lawsuit and the negative press, some storage facilities noticed a strange trend. More delinquent tenants suddenly started paying their overdue bills, sometimes up to 30% more. Apparently, the thought of their stuff, or private lives, being broadcast on national TV was a pretty powerful motivator. At the same time, the show created new headaches. Managers saw more insurance claims and started worrying about potential lawsuits from tenants claiming their units were tampered with for the cameras. The show that once made storage auctions look exciting may have permanently cooled the industry's enthusiasm for what used to be their most profitable disposal method. In the wake of the Storage Wars scandal, there were a few attempts to make a truly honest, transparent version of a storage auction show. One of the more ambitious projects was a crowd-funded idea called Live Locker, which promised to stream uncut, 24-hour multi-camera feeds of auctions and locker cleanouts. People loved the concept on paper because it was all about authenticity, but in practice, it flopped. Test viewers quickly lost interest. After just 10 minutes of watching someone sort through boxes of old clothes and dig through rat droppings, most people tuned out. The experiment basically proved a harsh truth. Real storage hunting is, for the most part, painfully boring. The fame and money from Storage Wars also left a long shadow over the cast's professional lives. Legitimate dealers in auctions and resale often don't take Daryl Sheets seriously anymore, seeing him as more of a reality TV caricature than a skilled buyer. Brandi has said she's been typecast, mostly getting offers for roles that fit her feisty ex persona from the show. Dave Hester claimed he lost out on city contracts because of the risk associated with his litigious reputation. Sure, the cast is richer than most of us could dream of, but many of them admit there's a professional cost to having bought into and sold the hype that the show created. What producers will never admit. Beyond just planting items from other lockers, there have long been whispers and some insider claims that the deception on Storage Wars went even further than most viewers realized. According to several former crew members and production insiders, prop houses would sometimes loan hero collectibles to the show. These were the kinds of items guaranteed to make a scene memorable: a vintage jukebox, a rare comic book, or a collectible toy from the 1970s. The crew would place these items in a locker for a dramatic reveal, film the reactions, and then quietly return the items once shooting wrapped. The whole process was designed to create that perfect wow moment for the cameras, regardless of whether anyone actually found something that valuable on their own. Cast members who noticed something suspicious were often put in a difficult position. Reports suggest that the unofficial rule was essentially play along or be replaced. Those who questioned the practice or tried to blow the whistle risked being cut from the show, which could mean losing significant paychecks and exposure. Even when items were clearly staged, producers were careful with wording. Nothing on screen explicitly claimed that every item was authentically discovered in that specific locker. The items were described as surprising or unexpected to the cast member, which gave the network a legal shield and allowed them to argue that the moment was about the reaction, not the authenticity. This practice wasn't limited to just a handful of episodes either. Multiple cast members have, over the years, hinted in interviews and podcasts that plants or borrowed items were occasionally sprinkled throughout the series, especially in episodes that were under tight narrative deadlines or lacked naturally exciting finds. Some insiders even suggest that the editors would sometimes swap reactions between episodes, so a gasp or cheer from one locker discovery could be cut into a completely different scene to maximize drama. It was a masterclass in semantic gymnastics and editing sleight of hand, turning what might have been an ordinary dusty storage cleanout into a moment of pure television spectacle. The result is that while viewers might have believed they were seeing pure luck and skill, What they were actually watching was a carefully orchestrated combination of real auctions, staged finds, and cinematic storytelling. The fact that some items were returned, repurposed, or temporarily borrowed from prop collections adds another layer to the show's behind-the-scenes mythology, showing just how far producers were willing to go to make sure every episode delivered a hook, a twist, or a jaw-dropping moment. If this deep dive shocked you, be sure to like this video and share it with that one friend who still swears every single find was real.